What's up, everybody? It's Goddess Z, and I'm here with another podcast episode on Holistic and Spiritual AF. Welcome back, fam. If you're tuning in again, I appreciate each and every one of you. And if this is your first time landing on this podcast, you are absolutely in the right place. If you like hearing topics about how to connect with your ancestors, metaphysics, how to access your divine feminine codes, all that good stuff, we talk about it over here on the second and the fourth Fridays of the month at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This podcast drops. And this podcast can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, YouTube, pretty much anywhere that podcasts are syndicated now. So be sure to follow me on the respective platform so that you don't miss a episode. Okay. And then, of course, I also offer spiritual consultations, books, classes. We've got a class coming up next month. So be sure to check out my website at holisticandspiritualaf.com. That's and spelled out, and you will keep up with all the good things that are going on. I've got a newsletter on there as well. So that's really the best way to stay in tune with the happenings outside of the podcast as well. Okay. And then, of course, I'm all over social media as well at Holistic and Spiritual AF. So definitely, like I said, the website is going to be the main hub to be able to find out what's going on in the Holistic and Spiritual AF community. All right. So that was probably the shortest intro ever to date. All right. And so I'm going to go ahead and jump into today's episode. This is going to be a solo episode with me. This is episode 83, Energetic Chords, Lovers, and Memory. All right. So we're going to dive deep into some like sensitive subjects today, where we're going to be talking about past lovers and the energetic chords that a lot of times they attach to us. And I know some of us out here who are very energetically sensitive know what I'm talking about. So we're going to get in that. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be breaking that down. And then we're also going to be talking about how to actually cut those cords as well. Because you know me, I like to talk about what it is, and then I also like to talk about what the solutions are. All right. And everything that I do from an Afro-Indigenous perspective. I work primarily with Black women and women of the African diaspora. So, yeah, that's me. So, I'm always going to be talking about that and leading with that. But I also like to give the definitions of things from a Western perspective as well as an Afro-Indigenous perspective, so we can see how the two correlate and some of the important aspects that are usually missing on the Western side. Okay. So, first thing I want to break down today is I want to talk about energetic chords. All right. For some people, this may be the first time that you're even hearing about this. So, this is another reason that I do this. For other people, you may haven't heard it in a while, and maybe you need a little bit more definition on it, whatever it is, this is why I do this. All right. So, from the Western perspective, an energetic cord is seen as like emotional attachments, psychological bands, subconscious ties, and a lot of times, what we're talking about for this episode is this is formed through intimacy, through trauma and repeated interaction and emotional vulnerability. So, a lot of this is not always visible because we're talking about energy cords here, but they definitely can be felt. All right. So, from an Afro Indigenous perspective, we didn't call this cords. Okay. Our ancestors were doing a lot of these things long before there was a Western English word for it. Okay. So we understand this as a spiritual entanglement. All right. Exchange of life force energy, imprinting between bodies and spirits. Okay. So we're always going to take things more from the energetic side, the spiritual side of things, and connect the two. That's typically how our ancestors were doing things because that's how they viewed life as a whole. So from the body is an archive. The womb carries memory, and intimacy is energetic, not just physical. And we're going to break that down a little bit further in this episode because it's true. Intimacy, like how would you actually describe intimacy, all right, without describing it in an energetic way? Okay. It's not just physical, it's not just the sexual act of intimacy, but it's actually when we connect with someone. We're not just sharing a moment, we're exchanging energy, memory, and spirit. All right. And so now I'm going to do something I usually don't do in this episode, and I'm going to break down the cosmic perspective because it's definitely all intertwined. And in my opinion, you can't really talk about energy without actually talking about the cosmic connection to things as well. So we're going to zoom this out a little bit. And from the cosmic perspective, the body is electromagnetic, it's also responsive. And it's constantly exchanging energy. So, the sex side of things is one of the most powerful energetic exchanges that we can experience. So, when two people actually connect, energy fields merge, and emotional imprints form and nervous systems link. Okay, y'all, that's powerful. So, like, once you start to kind of break these things down, that's another reason I do it. It takes you deeper and more introspective into your journey and your thought process about who we having sex with. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I was always on this and that I didn't actually have some spiritual and energetic entanglements with some people that I wish that I hadn't. But we're going to talk about the dangers of sometimes some of these people that we're not so discerning about, and the fact that those energetic cords and imprints that they place on us are there long after they're gone. Okay. So when we're talking about energy exchange, we all know that energy exchange is not a new concept. All right. This is something that most of us can kind of understand. At some point, we have realized that everything is comprised of energy. So everything is everything, the plants, the wind, us as people, everything is comprised of energy. So across the African diasporic traditions like Yoruba, Akan, and of course Hudu root work traditions, there's a core understanding that life force energy is transferable. And this isn't just on the African side of things. This is just in indigenous cultures throughout the world. Okay. So if you actually did some sort of studies in Native American traditions, or even in the eastern side of things, everything is comprised of energy. It's just once you get to the western side of things, where we just kind of pull the spirit out of everything, make everything scientific and psychological, when actually that is one way of receiving that information and understanding it. But traditionally, and much more ancient teachings understood this as something that just was always there. All right. So life force energy is transferable. In the Yoruba spirituality, this life force energy is called Ashe. And I think that's pretty exciting to talk about too, because a lot of times we throw that word around and a lot of people don't really understand what that is, and what it means. So Ashe kind of has like a dual meaning to it. I was actually just talking to somebody about this not too long ago, and I was breaking it down because Ashe, I simplified it for him because all of this stuff is very new to him. And so Ashe can be seen as like an amen after a prayer, which amen also breaks down to and so it is, as a manifestative kind of commanding type thing, right? So Ashe is not only life force energy, but it's also the power to make things happen, the divine energy within all beings, all right? So when we're talking about sex and we're talking about intimacy, touch, and emotional bonding, we're seen as carrying Ashe, all right? And so when you connect with someone, you're exchanging spiritual authority, not just pleasure, right? And this is probably a buzzkill for some people because you're like, damn, I just want to have fun. I just want to have sex. I just want to feel good for the moment, But what is that going to cost you? That moment of pleasure. So obviously, we're talking about people who may have been affected by this or may possibly be affected by this now, and you're wondering why certain things you're experiencing certain things. Check the partners that you've experienced recently, and a lot of times I don't care how good the sex is, y'all. Okay. So very, very important stuff here when we're talking about energy exchange, life force energy, also known as chi, ashe. We have the power to make things happen with the same type of energy. So if that is the case, an energy exchange can be a lot more powerful than we're giving it credit for. All right. So when we talk about energetic residue, after sex, um, every connection leaves you feeling full, and some leave you feeling confused, right? So if you've ever had an encounter where you feel heavier, you feel confused, or you feel like there's been some sort of attachment, or maybe you're starting to experience emotional loops, then you have to think about the person that it is that you've been with recently. I mean, obviously, you're going to check everything. So once you start tapping into your intuition and your awareness about things, you want to start to kind of do what I like to call a spiritual inventory, like a spot check of like what is going on, okay? What is happening in my life right now? And start to evaluate things in your life to see what needs to be changed, to see what needs to be adjusted. All right. So a big part of that could be the partners that you're choosing. And sometimes this could be somebody that is consistently coming up and maybe that's all that they are. But the thing is how do you feel afterwards? Not necessarily right after, but how do you feel days after? And I think a lot of people can probably relate to this by you feel drained. If you're feeling really drained and this person is like super energized, now they're like, great, that's thanks. I'm coming over here as often as I can. Why? Because they are draining your life force energy and they are imprinting you with their energetic residue. Because when we're having these partners like this, we're not exactly being um sometimes we don't even know these people that well. You know what I'm saying? We haven't taken the time to really get to know these people and know how they're living and what type of lifestyle they're living in. We only know one side and one part of them, and we have no idea this other things that they may be doing, and what types of attachments, soul attachments they may have to them. So like this is like super powerful when we're talking about connecting with people on that level, right? And in this episode, we're just talking about lovers. But yeah, this kind of can go across the board, your interactions with other people, even if it's not intimate and it's not sexual. How is it making you feel? Like, how does this person leave you feeling? We had another episode where we talked about energy vampires, and you can kind of tell who they are because they just come over there and suck the life force energy out of you, and you're super drained afterwards. So this is extremely more potent when you have an intimate connection with someone. Okay, and the reason this is because you've absorbed their energy. They absorbed yours and there was no closure or clearing, right? So we just doing stuff. Like literally, we coming together to kind of release and feel some sort of physical need of some sort, but there's nobody like taking into consideration you know, what type of lifestyle the person's living, especially if you're somebody who's on a path and you are like doing things where you're doing your spiritual baths and you're cleansing your home and you're blessing and doing your protections and you're doing all these things and you get this mate and this partner that is just absolutely not a match. They are definitely going to benefit from your energy more than you will from theirs. Okay, so the more and longer that we're on this journey, we have to just use our intuition and be more discerning about a lot of things, about everything, but especially the partners that we choose to share our beds with. Okay. So here's a couple of signs that you may have taken on this energetic residue of your intimate partner. You're thinking about them constantly. Emotional attachment that doesn't make sense. All right. Feeling drained after intimacy. Comparing new partners to old ones and difficulty moving on. Now, some of y'all probably like, wait, I've done all of that, right? So you got to put it in perspective too. So when you're thinking about them constantly, what are you thinking about them constantly? This is when we start to be living inwardly, outwardly. Okay. So we're receiving messages at the same time. It's not just our head going off on one. We're using all of our spiritual radar systems to be able to understand what is going on. Okay. So if something's off, your intuition is going to let you know when something is off, right? So if you're thinking about them constantly, what are you thinking about them? Is this something that benefits you? Is this someone who makes you feel good in a certain way? Or is this somebody who leaves you confused? Or is this somebody who always leaves you feeling heavy? Or is this somebody, here's a telltale sign for me, like just bad shit just keeps happening. Like if you're a person who's usually in alignment and things are not that much of a struggle and you're usually in the flow of life and now all of a sudden you encounter this partner and shit's going good for them and all of a sudden your stuff is going back and you had things planned and in the oven, now all of a sudden those things are falling apart and you're thinking about them constantly. um you got to, like I said, start looking into stuff and seeing where some stuff is it needs to be tweaked or cut out completely. All right. So emotional attachment that doesn't make sense. Now, if you're like super addicted to this person, like for no reason, what that's a big one right there because what does that mean? Like, how in the world could you be that attached to somebody that you don't know and all y'all did was encounter each other intimately? Okay. So that could be a sign of energetic residue or cord that has been imprinted in you. Okay. Feeling drained after intimacy. Now, this is a big one because a lot of times, like, a lot of people think that you're um, supposed to be tired, you know what I'm saying, after this encounter. But I learned as a tantrika, when I studied tantra, that it's actually the opposite. When I learned these things, I learned how to utilize that sexual energy in a much more powerful, more manifestative way. Because, like I said, sexual energy is one of the most powerful forms of energy that you can work with, and especially on the manifestating side. But now, when you're doing this, now clearly with Tantra, you're having a like partner. You guys are like on the same kind of frequency and stuff. It's not one person way up here and somebody not even on a frequency at all. Okay, so these are two individuals that are highly energetically compatible, and it's the total opposite effect after intimacy. Instead of being drained, you're like super energized. You know what I'm saying? You're like really full and you have a lot more energy because there was an energy exchange that was equal. And now all of a sudden you guys have kind of like jolted each other, utilizing that cycle of energy that we just talked about. That life force energy, that exchange of energy was even, and it has nothing to do with the quality of sex as well. Okay, so I'm letting people know that as well. You could still have some extremely good sex and it just be, like I said, somebody didn't put a cord on you. Like, all of a sudden you're connected. But you should not be feeling drained, okay, after intimacy. That is something that needs to be checked, you know. Did you give too much and the other person just took, you know, and that's kind of how that goes as well. Comparing new partners to old ones, that one right there does not necessarily to me say energetic residue, but really you shouldn't be doing that anyway. Like, I got a rule book which is no judgments, no expectations, so you shouldn't be bringing the energy of other people into intimacy with another person. Like, that's just strange to begin with, and that creates all of these ideas. I think you end up kind of binding yourself with that kind of situation, and then difficulty moving on. So for whatever reason, if it is time and you feel like something's off, you know, I gotta stop, you know, being that close with this person, and you have trouble moving on. Once again, investigate this, you know, use your spiritual counsel, use your ancestors, your intuition, and try to figure out like what's going on here, because you may be able to catch the signs of things early, and your intuition never lies. And I guarantee you, if it is an off match like that, your body is signaling things to you, your intuition is signaling things to you. Energetically, things are not as aligned as they should be. So you've been receiving the red flags along the way. All right. So we talked a lot about the energetic residue. I also want to talk about the body because that goes hand in hand. We're talking about bodies when we're talking about getting intimate on this level. We're not just talking about energy. So, once again, we did a couple of podcast episodes where we talked about memory being stored in the body, in the tissues of the body. And that's also energetic imprints as well. So, in spiritual language, and in African healing traditions, scholars in African centered healing frameworks describe the body as a living archive of memory, experience, and ancestral imprint. So, this aligns with the somatic trauma research, like work in the body based therapy fields, where the body stores unresolved emotional experiences. And so, you've got all sorts of kind of healing modalities that work with the body. And one of the things that I talked about in another episode is the womb and the power of the womb. Okay, so when we're talking about this level of intimacy, we talking about somebody being all up in your womb. Like, your womb is such a powerhouse that is a database that connects you to the lineage before and after you. Okay, so that in itself is like that needs to be treated like a treasure trove. Like, you know, you cannot just be letting everybody have access to that. And I'm not telling people what to do because, like I said, but I didn't know all this stuff, you know, at a certain point. But what I'm doing is, if this resonates with you, you'll know. Okay. And you start to think about things and see things differently. And I'm also not saying that to never have sex at all either. And I'm saying be discerning and listen to your spiritual systems. All right. So your body is going to be talking to you, your intuition is going to be talking to you, and your spirit team is going to be talking to you. But you don't even need any kind of outside counsel for this because you're going to be dealing with yourself on this one. But your womb is extremely powerful, all right? It's one of your most powerful energetic centers, all right? When we think about the chakras, if we're coming from the Eastern perspective, the sacral chakra is going to be the one that holds your sexual pleasure and creativity and all of these different things. So when we're connecting with these energy centers with somebody else, you know, we could very well be creating and storing certain things inside of us that we're passing on to other partners as well. So I think that's also very important to talk about. We may be the one that is actually passing on and connecting these cords to other people, our intimate partners, right? So, very, very important stuff. And then something else I want to talk about when we talk about the womb. is the fact that if we've ever experienced any sort of sexual trauma, a lot of times that is imprinted and stored into our wombs, and we can become unaware of that as well. And some of our behaviors with intimacy may be reflecting that as well. So it's very important to understand that not just from a, oh, this person is like, energetically connecting to me and, leaving their residue and they done snatched my soul. It could also be the other way around. So this could also be very beneficial for you to start to maybe say pull back, work on yourself a little bit, start to clear things and energetic residue around intimacy and sex yourself so that you're not the one that is going and passing things and connecting these cords all over the place, and wondering why you can't move forward in certain areas. So very, very important stuff as women, we have to understand this. So, um, in many African and Afro and diasporic traditions, the womb is not just reproductive, it is intuitive, creative, and ancestral space. We just talked about that. This connects to Afro Caribbean spiritual systems, Dagara teachings, hoodoo womb work, and herbal practices. The womb is understood as a place where life is created, memory is held, and spirit communicates. So, very, very powerful. One of the most powerful energetic centers that we have in our body. So, once we start to kind of break this stuff down and start to understand, so first of all, you're not faulted for not knowing what you didn't know. You know what I'm saying? But once you start to be exposed to certain things, like I said, it brings you to a place of remembrance and of who you are, who you truly are. And you can start to look at things differently and you can start to move differently and make different choices and decisions. Okay. So this is not about judging anybody at all. Okay. So, like, if you've ever been in one of my classes, we kind of, that's why I work primarily with women, because we talk about things that we can't necessarily talk about in mixed class settings. All right. So the Afro-Indigenous understanding of the womb as a creative center, an intuitive center, an ancestral center, and a memory holder that carries emotional imprint, relational patterns, and generational energy. Okay. Also very important. These energetic cords could now start to filter into life being born. Okay, and now they're carrying these patterns, and the new generations carrying these patterns inside of their DNA, because we've unintentionally, passed them to them. All right. Now, from the Western side of things, trauma research shows that the body stores unresolved experiences, especially in areas tied to vulnerability and reproduction. The nervous system plus body equals memory storage. All right. So, what this looks like: it's anxiety around intimacy, emotional shutdown, over attachment, repeating unhealthy relationship cycles. So this is what it may look like inside of you. So, like, this type of stuff you may not be able to see in the other person. But if we're looking at ourselves and we're working on ourselves, we can see whether or not there's some anxiety around intimacy. Why is that? Is there some sort of trauma stored in the womb? Has there been some sort of negative experience that has imprinted on us? And now we want to be able to one day experience intimacy in a normal, healthy manner and be able to attract and manifest the right type of partner. So that type of stuff right there requires some healing work. And then emotional shutdown. Maybe it's just like, I don't put no emotions in nothing. It's just about, getting together and having a good time, and that's cool too. But essentially, there's an imbalance there as well that is also kind of screaming for some sort of help. And then over attachment, like, am I always, is this the one? Am I always attaching this one? This is probably connected to some sort of like abandonment issues as well. And then repeating unhealthy relationship cycles. I think we can kind of all like relate to that at some point, where we kept choosing the wrong person or kept choosing the same type of person and wondering why you can't, find a relationship that's healthy. And it's got something to do with some healing that's necessary on the intimacy side of things. All right. So your body remembers what the mind tries to move past. I mean, we talked about this in several episodes where your mind and your nervous system is trying to survive. Okay. It's trying to protect you. So if there's some things that are uncomfortable, it's like, okay, well, we're not going to think about that right now. We're going to do this instead. Whereas the body is like, okay, well, we're just going to store this information. Why? Because the DNA is a database and a center that holds information. So essentially, it's still there. It's just kind of acting out in different ways. And you could be completely unaware of this. All right. You could be maybe great in all other aspects of your life, but around intimacy and sex relations, you really struggle and you don't know why. And so that could be because of the cords that have been attached to you, or the cords that you have inside of you that you need to heal, that you may be passing on to other people, right? So, very, very important stuff. This episode has ended up being deeper than I thought it was going to be, but you know what? It needed to be said. This is what I was called to bring to you guys today. All right. So let's talk about why the cords actually stay attached. All right. The cords remain when there was emotional intensity. So a lot of times, if they started out super passionate, we know, okay, all of us have been in this. Like I said, you don't know them as well as you should, but all you know is that passion right there is running the show. All right. So if you were emotionally in an intense type of intimacy, then that cord could stay attached, right? And if there was trauma bonding, okay, that's another cord that could attach. If there was unfinished closure, if maybe things just kind of, well, he just didn't call me one day, and then next thing you know, pop up 6 months from now and call, and this person has a cord that's connected, and now they're going to call you up for that same thing again, right? I want to go back to the trauma bonding for a second, because that is a tricky one, because it's like, hey, what's wrong with connecting with somebody and now y'all get to know each other, but y'all get to know each other through each other's trauma, and so you've bonded through that, right? So that's not exactly the most healthy place to be intimate, right? Because it's easy to kind of feel like, oh, you really understand me, you really get me, because you've been through this and I've been through that. But really, that's not a healthy place to be, because if neither one of y'all are healing, then y'all are just exchanging, trauma bonded type of energy with each other. So that's what I mean by the trauma bonding on that. And then, of course, unfinished closure, we talked about that, and there was vulnerability without safety. So obviously, this is going to go into the types of things that we talked about before, where there was sexual trauma. Maybe you trusted somebody and the person was not safe to be trusted. So those types of things are where cords will stay attached, most likely embedded inside of the womb area, in the body area, and energetically there will be patterns like some of those ones that we talked about in the top part of this episode. So now I want to put in the cosmic layer on this. All right. So from a physics informs lens, the body has an electromagnetic field. The heart and brain emit measurable frequencies. So close physical contact synchronizes nervous system. And so in intimacy, field merging plus imprinting is basically what's happening. Like, so if you are more resonant with things from a energetic side of things, this is still the same thing that's happening, just energetically, and it's filtering things from the heart and the brain, which are two major parts of the neurological system, aka the nervous system. So what does that mean? It's going to be stored in the body somewhere. So it all kind of like integrates, and it all cycles, and it's all saying the same thing basically. When two bodies come together, their energetic fields interact, synchronize, and leave an imprint. Okay, regardless whether it's a good one or a bad one. So each and every person that you have encountered on your journey has left an imprint. Okay. Now, some of them maybe not something so significant where it's a hook and a cord, but some of them have left an imprint, period. Okay. And that is stored in the body, in the energetic field. And without clearing and cleansing certain things, because you may just be doing the total cleansing and clearing, but you're not really focusing on this aspect of your healing or your spiritual maintenance, you could just be walking around with these imprints all over the place. And it's just kind of showing up in different ways. All right. So energetic cords are not imaginary just because you can't see them. All right. They are the result of repeated emotional, physical, and spiritual exchange. All right. So we dropped that down. That was a lot of information, y'all. Like, I really did not expect to like go so deep into this, but I think it's very important information, to understand, because once we start to break things down like this, like I said, it creates that awareness, and that awareness that taps somewhere inside of us for some of us and activates something that's like, you know what? She's right. I know this, there's a remembrance to it. And so we start to move different. Like, when we know better, we do better. When we began to move in the direction of doing better, and we start to align things differently in our lives for ourselves, and in doing so, we tell the universe that, hey, we want to do something different. And now the universe starts to respond, and our bodies and our energetic field learns a new program. All right. Because a lot of this stuff is we've been programmed a certain way. I've always been this way. This is just the way I've done it. It hasn't been a problem, but there's some sort of healing that's necessary for this. So, we're going to go into the 4 to 5 step process of how to actually remove these energetic cords. And step one is going to start with acknowledge the connection. No spiritual bypassing, okay? And spiritual bypassing is basically when we try to skeet around what is uncomfortable for us. And sometimes we can do that. But at the end of the day, if we're continuously on our healing journey and healing things, we're going to have to come right back around to the thing anyway. All right. So it's not going to go anywhere. And I remember that with my healing journey too. There was like one major part that I just really hung on to and I did not want to look at. I didn't want to face. I knew that it was a problem. And it wasn't until about 2022 when I had healed as much of the other stuff as I could. And my ancestors was like, listen, you can't go any further without dealing with this. And I used to always be like, oh, I'm going to deal with that, but I'm not going to do it now. So that's spiritual bypassing. Okay. So anytime you have the awareness of something that needs to be healed, and you just choose like, nah, I ain't gonna do that today, then that's spiritual bypassing. Like when you don't know, you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. But awareness is always going to be the first step. So the first thing you're going to need to do in this type of awareness is to be able to acknowledge the connection. Okay. Most people are going to want to skip this. You can't release what you won't name. So awareness is the knowledge and the knowing of. Now, acknowledgement is going to be now you have to like say it. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? You got to say it out loud. So, what did this person give me? What did I give them? What am I still holding? And this is emotional honesty with yourself. Like, you don't have to go back and tell this other person this. This is just you. This is you sitting here with yourself and your intuition and whomever part of your spirit team you feel comfortable choose to call in. Or maybe it's just you, working with yourself, your higher self, and really getting honest with yourself. Okay. So spiritual bypassing is just not really being honest with yourself. But when you stand and ready to heal, you're like, okay, I got to get real with me. And so, begin to ask yourself those questions. And you have to first, like I said, acknowledge that there was an issue. Like, I knew this person wasn't right. I knew it was more than that. I never got what I needed, or I'm the one who did this, that type of thing. So that's the acknowledgement number one. You got to do that before we can even move into the next steps. All right. So step two is going to be calling your energy back. All right. Making sure that you're calling your energy back. Now, I talked about this in a spiritual maintenance, another podcast episode, where that's something that really we should be doing on a regular basis anyway, like daily, definitely a couple times a week. All right. Because the more attuned and higher your frequency vibrates, you need to be doing this. Okay. Because like we're interacting with people on a variety of different ways and we're talking about energy, but the purposes of this episode is we're talking about sexual energy. So you want to kind of focus and hone in on what it is that we're doing with this particular type of healing. All right. So when you call in your energy back throughout your regular spiritual maintenance, that's different. But when you hone in and specifically call your energy back from past lovers and partners, so that you're not taking on anything of theirs and you're not giving out stuff of yours, you call in your energy back. All right. So, in African spiritual reclamation practices, modern energy psychology, we speak it. All right. We don't just think about it. We don't just, I should do that. We speak that. We call that back. You say it out loud. I call my energy back from every place, person, thing, and then it'll be your own. Like, I call my energy back from every place, person, and experience where I left it. I say I call my energy back from every person, place, thing, entity, time, portal, dimension. Like I try to cover it all. So all of that. But in this, get specific about this particular type of calling your energy back. So that's very important. Call it back and speak it back. Do this out loud. Do it with intentions. Okay, do it with your hands on your body, on your womb. And this is sovereignty activation. All right. So you're going to notice things changing inside of you. Remember, we're not changing other people. The only people we have power to change is ourselves. So this is going to allow you to move differently and how you encounter people and intimate connections in the future. And it's also going to call your power back from those past partners that we talked about, that everybody leaves an imprint of some sort. And some of us don't even want to think, about that, because we got to think about how long we've been on the planet, how long we've been sexually active. So honey, call it back. You know what I'm saying? And even if you want to do this like after an encounter, do that too. If that makes you feel like, okay, I'm staying on top of it, But definitely for the first time, you want to make sure you call it back from every experience where you left it, and just kind of really make that declaration your own. All right. So calling that back, that's going to be step two. Step three is going to be intentional core release, not just cutting. All right. Because cutting to me says there's still some left on you, and there's still, we want to release that. Okay, going, and that's going to be tying into the calling your power back. All right. So combine whatever sort of practice you want to put into it, whether that's breath, whether that's visualization, whether that's body awareness. Visualize the connection located in your body, womb, heart, and gut. Exhale and release it. All right. Now you could do this in several different ways, but the point is you want to release it. Okay. You want to be very intentional. You want to be very specific. That's why visualization is good with this one, because you're going to actually want to see the person. Okay, you're going to want to see the connection, so that you're very specific about what it is that you're releasing. And what is not mine, I release. What is mine, I reclaim. Okay, so this kind of goes hand in hand with the calling your power back. All right, now so you're going to call your power back, and you're going to release the cord. Okay, you're going to release the connection, right? It doesn't mean that it doesn't come up in your memory. It means that it doesn't have an attachment to you anymore. Okay, and essentially you won't even be thinking about it like that. All right. So the fourth one is going to be cleanse the body. This is key. You can make this kind of like this step by step process can be an entire ritual, or it could be pieces of these things. But this is going to be the most effective if you can go through 1 through 5. All right. So cleanse the body. We talk about this all the time. I say we should be doing this on a daily basis, just like we take a shower every day. That's actually where I do my spiritual cleansing. Why? Because I got to take a shower every day. So that makes me do it every day. And I remembered when I first started learning this, that's how I learned it. That's how I did it. And that's how it became a regular practice for me. So cleansing the body. Spiritual baths, okay? We talked about that plenty of times. It never gets old. Water rituals, pouring, rinsing, intentional washing, floor washes, that's cleansing your space, all right? So environmental clearing, that's another thing. The person been all up in your house. Like I said, these may be things that you say, okay, I got to get this energy out of here. I got a cord connected. So now you got to call your power back. You got to release. You got to visualize, release. You got to do a spiritual bath. Now it's turning into a ritual. You know what I'm saying? Now I need to cleanse and clear my house as well. I need to get this energy out of here. All right. So that may also be a part of it. But water is extremely cleansing, and water with intention. If you have no herbs and you have no time to do anything else, water with intention and prayers is absolutely powerful. Okay, because that right there is all you need sometimes, if that's all you have access to. And as we know in hoodoo, we use what we got. All right. So there's nobody that can be like, oh, I don't have this type of herb. It doesn't matter. You got a shower, you got water. You can start out with that, and and then get you some herbs later. Um, all right. And then five is you're gonna close the portal. So now if you've opened this thing up and you started this, now this is a ritual. So you want to make sure that you close that off. Okay. You don't want to leave that portal wide open, because now you just never closed it and it's just open and it's still really there. So very important to do things in a streamlined order. Close the portal. This is the part that people miss. And I remember I remember when I first started oh, I give thanks to my ancestors. I really do. But I remember in the beginning when I was first learning, and I'm over here learning from my ancestors because nobody else was on this, and they trying to, I could barely hear them. It was a hot mess. But I was so adamant about learning this, and they taught me first things first, because they knew that a major part of my path was on the healing side of things. And they're like, listen, you're going to be encountering a lot of different types of energies, and so you have got to get this part right. And the thing that they taught me was the opening of the portal and the closing of the portal. It's almost like we did the wax on, wax off before I could actually learn some damn karate moves. I was over here closing and opening portals, opening and closing portals. So very, very important. Like, you just can't leave a portal open, y'all. You know what I'm saying? And you may not necessarily do this perfectly. That's why I say take your ancestors with you, your spirit team, write it down. That's always really good too in the beginning. If you're just learning, get yourself like a little journal, and start to write your practices down until you can memorize them and make them your own. All right. So definitely you want to close that portal off. And that also means not just closing the portal off, but making sure that you're not checking your text messages, you're not going over there to check the Instagram, see what they doing. You're not you get them pictures out your phone too. Let me tell you, get them pictures out your phone, honey. Because I used to have some ex pictures in my doggone love of my life album. The narcissist, okay? So love of my life had these pictures in there. Next thing you know, I done moved on and everything, and you know how your phone will show you like your past memories and stuff like that. Girl, please, like get rid of it, okay? Get rid of them pictures too. Stop revisiting the memories constantly. Stop reopening the energy, because that's basically what happens. Like now you done closed the portal off, you done with this. Now all of a sudden you go back and check a text. That is signaling that we're opening a portal again. All right. So make sure you stop that. It doesn't mean that if you do this a little bit after this, that oh gosh, I done messed it up. It just means that go through 1 through 5 again. Go through 1 through 5 until you're not even think about that person, or if the person pops up, you're like, "Mm-mm, I don't want to think about them." All right. So stop reopening the thing. Behavior must match the release. All right. That's another part that most people miss, is that we don't just do magic out here, okay, with no work behind it. Like, I just did me some work and now I'm done, I'm covered. No, you have to back it up with action. You have to back it up with, now that I said to the universe that this is what I want, I done called my power back. I done, released it. I have cleansed my body. I've cleansed my home, and now I've closed the portal. Now I got to move like that, and that not only means by moving away from that person or persons. It means that not reaching for more other ones like that. Okay. And so that behavior is matching the release energy, and the universe is responding like, oh, okay, so she doesn't want that anymore. She wants something different. All right. So very, very important stuff to understand, and that's why I wanted to do this episode. Like my ancestors was like, okay, this is a good one. And so we talked a little bit about sex today. We talked about the divine feminine and dating in another episode, but this one was necessary. Like to me, them energetic cords, lovers, and the memory, that's another thing too. A lot of times we're keeping that portal open with the memory is very important. And for somebody who may be at a phase in their life where they're trying to wonder why they're just not attracting the right type of intimacy, there's something to look at inside of ourselves. And yes, somebody very well may have left an energetic cord on you, but it doesn't mean you're doomed. It means that now you know what to do and how to release that and how to move forward without continuing to call in that same type of energy and invite that same type of energy. Okay. So hopefully you guys got some value out of that, because what happens once you do that is you begin to reclaim your sensual sovereignty. All right. So we talk a lot about activating our divine feminine codes in the holistic and spiritual AF community. That's a big part of this. Like we would be amiss to sit there and just talk about healing and all of these different stuff, and ancestry, and all of these things. Like it's a holistic mind body spirit approach, right? And we're not going to act like we haven't been living a human life here. Yeah, we're souls having a human experience, but a lot of us are reclaiming and reactivating things. So very important to understand that once we start to reclaim our sensual sovereignty, that is definitely going to move you closer and more in alignment with activating your divine feminine codes, because sensual sovereignty looks like ownership of your body. Okay. Have the ownership of your body, ownership of your energy, ownership of your pleasure. Now, this is also ancestral as well, because we also have to think about a lot of the traumas that's stored in our womb from our ancestors during the transatlantic slave trade, or some of the sexual assaults and traumas that they experienced that's inside of our DNA. So being able to heal that and being able to reclaim that sensual sovereignty is also ancestral work as well. And it's also allowing us to be able to help the future generations. It shows them something different. It teaches them something different. and it passes something different to them. All right. So a sovereign woman is intentional with intimacy. She understands energy exchange, does not give access without alignment. Okay. And honors her body as sacred. Right. And that's a beautiful thing, coming from we didn't know. Like I said, you don't get faulted for what you don't know. So a lot of people probably listening to this like, wow, it's the first time I've ever heard this. And the bottom line is it's a journey and it's a healing process. And it doesn't mean you're doomed and it doesn't mean you're a bad person. That's not at all what we're talking about. It means that there is a way to be able to reclaim your power back and as well as your sensual sovereignty. All right. So this is not about restriction either. All right. That does not mean that you can't be a freak, honey. It just means that you're more discerning about who you're connecting with. You're making sure that that energy exchange is equal. Okay. So that you're not finding yourself back in these situations. And if you do, like I said, go through 1 through 5 again. All right. So our ancestors understood that intimacy is sacred, not because of rules, but because of what it does to the spirit. So if you do get a chance to actually tap into the power of sexual energy, with the right type of partner. It is a phenomenal and amazing experience that you just absolutely don't want to miss. All right. So hopefully, ladies, y'all got something out of that. And fellas too. Okay. If you was listening in, you maybe learned something. So that is it for this episode. Be sure to drop your comments in the comment section. I always appreciate when you guys do that. Be sure to check out the website holisticanspiritualaf.com to check out the class that we're having next month. And of course, follow me on social media so that you can see the podcast clips at Holistic and Spiritual AF. And that is it, y'all. Until the next episode. Peace.